He was a professional boxer. He went on to train the Spinks brothers in boxing. And Rob was a real colorful kind of character. Rob would sell copperheads, cottonmouths, cobras, monkeys, raccoons. He didn't care what it was. Everything that you could think of was for sale there.
Oh my God.
That's where I kind of picked up.
You're not supposed to hear it up
about
there.
Animal care and stuff, but Ron eventually shut down. A lot of laws started coming along. Ron didn't agree with it. It was a lot of work, a lot of hassle, so he kind of gave it up. And of course, the laws changed, which was a good thing. To not sell a lot of this stuff, venomous stuff, and things like that. He was. He was around until I was maybe 12 years old or so, and I had a big collection of reptiles in my basement. Then circumstances in my family changed. Ron's shop shut down. My mom was going through like her third divorce. Couldn't have animals at home anymore, so I shut it all down and decided from about 13 years old until my 20s I would just chase girls and do drugs, and that kept me busy for a lot of years. And the reptile hobby at that time was still mostly zoo people and maybe a few breeders or people that aspired to be breeders, but to give you an idea, at that time, one of the more popular books written by a herpetologist alluded to the idea that they believed at the time ball pythons could both lay eggs and give live birth. And they figured this out because at a zoo they had a display of ball pythons and one day babies were crawling around, so it must have meant live birth. Apparently they didn't clean the cage and find eggs, so they just made that assumption and they actually published a book with that comment in it. So that's how archaic, that's how, back in the day, that's how things worked. That was the professionals of the day that believed that kind of stuff. One of the things that happened was, as I got back into it in my early 20s, it seemed like a lot of people converged at the same time around the country. Stephen Hammond over here was one of them. One of the guys that kind of mentored me, Mark Bell, Bob Clark, Vince Scheid, a bunch of these guys who were about my age, and started getting back into this. And I know we never had like an official meeting, but everybody kind of felt the same way. Was that if you went out to the places you went to as a kid and tried to catch the same animals, they weren't there anymore. It just wasn't the same as when you were a kid. And it was obvious you can't deplete these populations for the pet trade. There was no way to justify the pet trade by taking stuff out of the wild. So a lot of us kind of got the same idea at the same time, which was if we could reproduce these animals in captivity, you could justify the whole pet trade by saying that we don't put any footprint, we don't put any dent in the wild population. And at that time, that was not true. The majority of animals you bought in a pet store, and they were all wild caught. Now, however, it's 30 years later, you don't have to ever buy a wild-caught ball python, horned snake, king snake, leopard gecko, crested gecko. Those are produced in big enough numbers now, it's not necessary. So that's one of the things that in the future, when we have to stand up to animal rights idiots and try to defend our hobby to them, that's one of the things that needs to be made clear. A lot of politicians they will be the ones that will ban this hobby. They will be the ones that end it. They don't know anything about it. They don't have a clue. They don't like snakes. They don't care about lizards. They have no information at all. What they know is what PETA and the Humane Society of the United States tell them. So we got to be proactive, and groups like St. Louis Herpetological Society, the USR, will have to be at the front of this and tell them that they're going to have to look at all sides of this thing. And one thing is that this hobby, like what you see in the room right now, has changed things to the point that, there's been research done. Stephen Hammond is a zoo person. He's done research that has made an impact in this business and in the wild population, the understanding of how to hatch out reptile eggs, how to care for different animals. And I can tell you, he was one of the people that, at one point, a lot of us were working with different Mexican kings. Rear eye, fair eye, Ruthven eye, Mex-Mex, all these were kind of considered the same animal. And people could not get rear eye to breed and produce fertile eggs to save their lives. He thought of this, he says, I looked at microhabitat, where they're from, and all these things, put them in his rodent room where it was cooler, and sure enough, fertile eggs, and they all hatch. So that's a guy, well, he's a zoo guy, but it's also a hobbyist thing. That's done without some big research grant or anything. There's still room for those kind of things to happen in the hobby. Many of you can do that at home. You can, do research, keep records, and make changes. And when it comes to fighting for our hobby, that kind of information goes a long way in making us look like we really deserve to be left alone by a bunch of, politicians and animal rights extremists. For me, I started out when I first got into it, I went to the St. Louis Zoo, and I talked to them about getting a job. My wife and I owned a hair salon, and I was a hairstylist. That was based on, I wanted a job where I could party and hang out with women, and that was cool, but it had worked for that time, but then I got into the reptile thing, and I thought, that's really what I wanted to do. And I talked to Ron Gellner, who was the curator of reptiles at the time, and Ron had said, one thing in the zoo business, we're reaching the point where we have to hire people with at least some sort of a degree. It used to be that whatever guy in the zoo wasn't afraid of reptiles, he's the one, that will hire in the reptiles. But I can't hire you anymore unless you want to go back to school, and I wasn't going to do it. So that went on until, I finally decided, he said, join this local club, the Herpetological Society. So I joined, and on the first meeting, it was very cliquish. There was a group of guys that ran things, and they were the ones that, if you guys hecklers, I'll beat your ass after the show. These guys work for me, so. But when I went to the herp meeting, I realized right away, the guys that were running things, the guys that were maybe 5 or 6 guys on the board, they had bigger collections and they had more information, so immediately I got on the board. And honestly, it was really cliquish. I mean, if you weren't part of their little group, they were rude. They weren't real helpful at first, but they knew I wasn't going away, so eventually I fit in. And as time went on, I ran for president of the Herp Society, and a guy ran against me who was a zookeeper. So he got the position of president. And I said, Norm, we got to do a reptile show in St. Louis. That is why the Kansas City Club is big. Those are getting popular. That's something we need to do, and he didn't want to do it. So I said, all right, I'm going to do it. So this show you see here, I did the first one ever in St. Louis. And I was so nervous, I thought I was going to throw up. I mean, I had put thousands of dollars and months of work into it, and no one had ever done it before. But it was huge. It looked like this. Packed full of people. All the vendors loved it. And we did it every year for several years. Other people decided it was easy money, so they started doing shows. And then the internet came along. They had little shows pop up all over the Midwest, and it just got to where it wasn't worth it anymore. And then our shop opened. We've been open 21 years now. So I got to where I just left the show thing and kind of focused on that. The only shows I usually do, my guys will do this one, or I go to Tinley Park once a year. But that's about it anymore. And Ron Gellner, that was at the zoo, had told me something. He said, the way this hobby's starting to take off, I wouldn't recommend getting a job at a zoo. I would recommend becoming a breeder. He said, because you can make a lot more money and not have the politics that comes along with a zoo job. So, that's kind of the way I looked at it, and that was the direction that I headed. I will say this, the Herp Society went from about 40 members the day that I did the first reptile show in St. Louis, and by the end of that day, we had over 200 members. So what I did worked, and it was the right thing for the Herp Society. Of course, I told the Herp Society from the beginning, I said, I will put an application in everybody's hand that walks through the door, but I'm keeping the money. So they didn't get the money, but they did get a huge membership out of it. And things have kind of changed now. Now that the internet has come along, people actually treat shows like this like they used to the Herp Society meetings. It used to be we go to the Herp Society meeting to socialize, sell a few animals, and the Herp Society has kind of fallen by the wayside. The internet seems to have kind of replaced it, which, it's kind of a bad thing in a way. When you consider the fact that if they ever go to ban any kind of reptile, I don't care if it's venomous, large, whatever, in St. Louis County, the Herp Society is going to be the only one that stands between you and the government ending your hobby. So you got to support the local Herp Society. I can't say much. I don't go to the meetings much anymore, but you got to be as active as you can with them. We got a real good president, Steve Brown, who has gone a long way toward keeping this hobby legal. What else? One of the things I got into right away were colubrids. And I've bred all different kinds of colubrids, all different kinds of boas and pythons, chameleons. I think when I first bred veiled chameleons, there were only a handful of people in the country that had them. And there was a girl in Oklahoma that was successful, and then I followed right behind her. Within a couple of months, I was one of the first people in the country to get a bunch of babies to hatch. We found out one thing that this hobby has taught us. We learned also from Jeff Edling, who's now the curator of reptiles here in St. Louis at the zoo. Wild-caught animals and captive bred animals are two totally different things. He had a group of blood pythons that had been imported as adults. The guy that owned them had them for like 15 years. He donated them to the zoo. The zoo had them for a couple of years, and Jeff came on the scene as just a new keeper. And Jeff set up their habitat in such a way and rained on them and did this and did that and did everything just right and got them to reproduce. And it wasn't easy, and he got the eggs to hatch. The funny thing was, within a few years, the babies grew up, bred like nobody's business. They breed just like breeding any other snake. There's nothing to it. But these wild-caught adults were tough to even keep alive, let alone
Who's the vendor?
Get them to reproduce. So that's another thing that we've learned over the years, is that once you can get something to reproduce regularly in captivity, and you know all the little idiosyncrasies of getting them to thrive, then you can, then it takes off. This could go a long way toward reintroducing animals someday, maybe. There's been
rock it out like a boss.
Oh, that's another thing I want to mention. For those of you that are new to this, there are different levels of animals here. You can get captive bred. That means the parents were bred in captivity, the babies were hatched in captivity. You get captive hatched. That's what a lot of wild-caught ball pythons are. They collect the females, they get the eggs, they hatch them in captivity, but the captivity there is more or less, it's where all the wild-caught stuff is too. You're more or less getting a wild-caught animal for all intents and purposes. Then there's farm raised, which is the way they breed a lot of iguanas and things. You kind of throw a fence around an area in a part of the country that's appropriate, and they let them breed and they collect the eggs. That's almost wild caught, not as bad. At least it's not putting any pressure on wild populations. And then of course there's just simply wild caught, which it's one of those things. There are some animals that are always going to probably be available only as wild caught animals. There are things like Nile monitors. People will get in little baby Niles, little baby Savannahs, and you'll get some vendors and watch them that'll tell you, oh, these are captive bred. The reason they're saying it is because it's little. That is not any more captive bred than anything else that's wild caught. That's exactly what it is. It's wild caught. So you got to watch for that kind of thing. But if there's no incentive to breed things like Nile monitors, Savannah monitors, because they sell wholesale for like a whopping $10, and it'll cost you to produce one in captivity, probably cost you $25 or $30. So nobody's going to do it. Somebody should, and it should be prepared for the day when they shut it down. Some laws that have changed. Everybody knows about the 4-inch law. Because of the spread of salmonella, the CDC said no more baby turtles being sold under 4 inches. And now you got to do paperwork and all that to do it legally, and even that is a fine line. The CDC, or it wasn't the CDC, well, somebody else recently, Department of Interior, I believe, said no more newts. They're not crossing state lines, it's over. So try to go to a pet store now, or even in this room, and buy a newt. You ain't going to find them. And that happened overnight like that. Nobody saw it coming. I'm in this trade every day of my life, and I never heard a word about it until it was illegal. I didn't see them on price list. I started asking the wholesalers, are you going to get any? They're like, nope, it's done. Never going to get them again. It's over. And that could happen to the entire pet trade if we're not careful. The most dangerous thing is you have guys like the Humane Society of the United States and PETA. If they ever have enough influence with someone powerful, like the CDC could pull the same thing on this entire hobby that they did with baby turtles by simply saying, you know what, we get X number of cases of childhood salmonella. Occasionally a child dies from salmonella. No more reptiles. You don't need them. We don't have any interest in you owning them. You're not powerful enough to stop us. Boom, they're illegal. That's it. It's over. And that can happen quick. I mean, the python ban is based on the most ridiculous, ludicrous science known to man. And it took place. It stuck. It worked. They did it. They got away with banning, moving a lot of different species of pythons boas across state lines, all based on animal extremists who lied to some politicians who made laws that they had no idea what they were doing. So, a couple of the other things I wanted to touch on was there's a lot of fun things in this hobby. My first recommendation to anybody is to be a breeder. That's where there's more money. That's where there's more. You feel more accomplished. I do the retail thing too, and I've said this before, I've been at it 21 years. If I had it to do over, I would never open a retail store. It's been a headache. I've had people steal from me. I've had employees steal. I have people not show up. I have customers complain about the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they'll buy an animal, set it up completely wrong, and then blame me, bring their kid in crying, cuss me out, threaten me and everything. And if I had it to do over, I'd never touch retail. But I still am a breeder. My collection is about 1,000 snakes, and I plan on increasing it. And when I retire, which I'm not the type that could ever really retire, I'll have to work until I drop over dead. I want to just become a breeder again, like I was before. one of the neat things that I fell into accidentally in this hobby was there was a girl in St. Louis who owned a company that would do set design for TV commercials and corporate videos and movies and stuff. And she hired me once to supply her with some animals. Then she signed me up, which I had no idea she was going to, in the Screen Actors Guild.
She said it was going to be short.
Signed me up as an animal handler. So that was interesting. I thought that should be cool, and it led to different doing movies, meeting movie stars, and doing stuff like that. Which eventually led to my most recent, most fun thing, which seems like I've only been doing a couple years. I've actually been doing this for 7 years. Is I supply Alice Cooper with snakes for his concerts. So I get to go see Alice at the beginning of the tour, which I'll do in a couple weeks down in Biloxi. I hang out with him for a week, and then they take off on tour, and I come home, and then 3 or 4 times throughout the tour, I go and pick the snake up, bring it home, replace it when he has to leave the country. As you know, moving a boa across country lines is too much headache. So I go hang out with him, and since I've been doing that, I've met all the guys in Iron Maiden and Motley Crue and Marilyn Manson, and all these different. I've taken some of the guys that work for me backstage, and they've got to meet them. So that kind of thing is a lot of fun. It's just a little niche, you know, that you might be able to fill as far as in advertising, photo shoots, things like that. If you've got animals and they need them, that could be a lot of fun. As far as the future of this hobby, I know I don't have a big audience, but hopefully somebody hears something. Facebook has been the biggest double-edged sword we've ever seen. On the one hand, you can advertise to thousands of people in a flash, and it's great for that. You can get information out quick. You can ask questions to experts on there and talk to them in real time, and that's unprecedented. We've never had that before.
See, that's what
On the other hand, I've seen a lot of bad come out of this. One thing I've seen is, like, our pet shop has been bashed. I can't tell you how many times. I could care less anymore. I won't tell you what my real opinion is because there's little kids here. But I can tell you, I don't care. You know, I've never had any of them that have bashed me been ballsy enough to square off in person, which really is frustrating. But I have seen, and that does bother me, when there's a new kid in this hobby, maybe 16 years old, got his first reptile, put something on Facebook about, hey, can you guys help me? I got this temperature, is this, and I'm feeding them that, and this is the substrate. And nobody really steps in and says, listen, buddy, I think you're doing it wrong. Let me see if I can give you a hand. I'll private message you. Instead, he gets tore up. He gets told he's stupid. He gets told, you know, you're a moron. You never should have had this animal. You're a jerk, blah, blah. And if it was my kid, I would step in and end it. I'd say, get off. Get yourself out of that group. Get away from those people. And you're going to end up pushing somebody out of this hobby who maybe could have cured IBD someday. Maybe would have been the first person to breed an endangered species, really done something significant. He's going to give up because people in the reptile community are pretty much a bunch of jerks. And it's all over Facebook. And I've been in other Facebook groups of you know, with birds and guns and different odds and then things like that. And I never see that until you get to the reptile hobby. And then people are just mean and hateful. So if anybody here is the admin of a group, I would suggest you watch. And the minute someone starts to bash somebody else, take them down. Private message them, tell them one more time and you're done. You won't be allowed in here. Now, did you get ripped off by somebody? You need to let us know who it was and the circumstances. And then the admins can make a decision and say, yeah, he got screwed. I got ripped off by a guy up north, I forget, Michigan or Wisconsin or something. And I damn near had to drive up there to get my money. And when I got into it, I started hearing a lot of other people had the same problem with the guy. So Facebook is good to alert people to that, to avoid certain things. But you got to be very careful and discern, you know, when is a good time to say something like that, or are you just being a hateful jerk? You think you know more than somebody else? And I tell people this, when you come in our shop, I've got, at any given time, you might talk to at least a half a dozen people in 1 week. And if you're new to this and you come in and say, I want to set up a bearded dragon for my kid, you can talk to me, you can talk to Matt, you can talk to Christian, Phoebe, and each one of us is going to tell you something just a little bit different. Some people use one light bulb, some people have 2 different types of light bulbs. And some people like this substrate, some people prefer this substrate. And any one of these ways will work. And it's fine, as long as I know they're within the parameters that'll keep this animal alive. Some people prefer cage carpet, some prefer grow brick. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. All of them will work. But what I don't want to happen is that somebody starts bashing somebody else, saying, well, he's a moron, he's going to kill it, he's doing it wrong, blah, blah, which is what you see on Facebook. And that's scary. I mean, that's just, like I said, they're going to chase people out of this hobby. This hobby, more than anything I've ever seen, needs more cohesion than any other hobby I've ever seen, because people are gunning for us. There are animal rights people that they want to see nobody eats meat, nobody goes fishing, nobody hunts, nobody wears leather, nobody wears fur, none of that.
They can't make all that happen overnight. But what they can do and what they are doing is start to pick it apart. Venomous snakes are an easy target. So if you're stupid enough to post a picture of yourself bare handling something venomous on Facebook, you're part of the problem. If you're stupid enough to have a 14-foot retic and take it out in your yard because you think it needs sun and piss your neighbors off, you're part of the problem. When I was president of the herbicide, I had to deal with people like that. I call them and say, listen, animal control is going to take your stuff. And they can do it, and you're going to lose. But what really concerns me is what you're going to do is ruin this hobby. Somebody's going to complain to just the right politician. He wants to make a name for himself. He wants his name on this bill. He wants to be the one to sign this law, and it's an easy sell. People that don't know these animals will easily say, sure, ban venomous stuff. I don't want this moron next door to me with a bunch of cobras. So we need to stick together, police ourselves, police each other, and then in turn be ready for a fight every time politicians or anybody attacks us. So I think that's about all I had here. I had a slideshow, but it was disjointed. It's from an old talk that I did, so we decided not to mess with it. Just a bunch of colorful colubrids and stuff anyway to fill in the background. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be here for a while. Our table's